Well, thank you. It's been years since I've been on this show. And it's funny, the last time I was on, my daughter came. Remember when it was in the old studio?
Yes.
Yeah, and my daughter was sitting in the studio audience, and the sad thing was that every caller we had that day was people that share the same opinion we do. And they're, I just wanted to say what you're doing is really great, and keep doing really well. It's good. Thanks, but that's not great TV.
Yeah. And I will say we do have a good lineup here today. We've got about half and half a split. It looks like from the caller list. So as usual, we prioritize the theistic callers, and so that shouldn't be a problem. But yes, I mean, I do understand 100% that Aron has tons of fans that would love to call and speak to him and take that opportunity. But this is not the show for that. So please let him do his thing with counter-apologetics and, his specialty, I think, paleontology, and that will be really good.
Well, don't hurt me like I'm all that special. I'm in awe next to you. Okay.
No, don't even. So anyway, there was something that I talked to you about earlier prior to the show.
Yes.
We had a caller that called in last time I was on 2 weeks ago, and that call went round and round, and I could not make any headway and finally just dropped the call and moved on to another call. But the concern was sort of several steps. So first of all, they called in and asked why I did not accept biology as evidence of God. They seemed to be confused about the idea of personal opinions of biologists who are theistic versus their professional perspectives on what is demonstrable using their field of science. Mm-hmm. They were also confused about the idea of using peer review not being sort of the end of the line. So you publish a paper on something like irreducible complexity, but then there's peer review, and then the community of peers in the field of biology looks at that paper, and they evaluate that paper, and they decide whether or not to adopt that as a consensus view or not. And that matters. And the person was very surprised that I seemed to put so much weight on consensus in a scientific field. And so I was hoping that you, with your background in paleontology, could kind of help shed some light on maybe a better explanation or a more clear explanation where I was unable to sort of get that point across.
What I wanted to say in regard to that was we have a number of what they call theistic evolutionists. We have the Christians who are scientists, but they still perform the science. I mean, and they have like Kenneth Miller, who's literally a textbook author in biology, and he was the star witness in Kitzmiller versus Dover. So he was arguing against all of the intelligent design people. So anybody that had tried to publish anything in support of intelligent design, like Michael Behe had tried to publish several things, and this didn't all come out in the court. But Kenneth Miller didn't just shoot him down in the courtroom. He had already shot down a number of other intelligent design arguments just in the field of science, just in the peer-reviewed material. So he's showing that just because you can, and it often goes back to the God of the gaps. They want to say that if you can't explain something, then I've explained it by magic, you know. So anything science can't explain, we explain by magic. But of course, that's you have to imply that this thing that you're proposing actually exists.
And magic's not an explanation; it's just a non-explanation. That
exactly.
That you label it.
So then you have to show that if we're talking about possibilities, when people want to talk about improbability, the argument from improbability fallacy, where what are the odds that everything could have come together by chance? What are the odds that I did everything that I did yesterday in the exact order that I did them yesterday at the exact time that I did them yesterday? It's absolutely impossible, when you work it out like that. But this is people that they're not trying to reason a result. They want to believe something, and so they think that if they don't, it works out in a weird way that if they don't know, they know. In a strange sort of a way, and if you don't know, they know. Have you ever noticed that? I mean, that their belief is bolstered if you don't know anything, then they can claim that they know it. And
sure.
That's all part of that God of gaps fallacy. So when we were talking about the biologists, many of them will have a religious belief before they ever get into their career where they achieve their doctorate degrees. There are a number of people who, like Robert T. Bacher is a paleontologist who was cited for Jurassic Park. He was one of the consultants there. He's a Pentecostal preacher.
Okay.
Still accepts evolution, right? Kenneth Miller, as we mentioned, and then Francis Collins, who was director of the Human Genome Project, doesn't buy any of the, it doesn't buy that the entire population was ever reduced to just Adam and Eve. He says that's impossible, but he still believes the rest of the biblical narrative, as long as most of it can be treated as metaphorical. But when all these people come to these positions because they already had the religious belief before they learned their degrees, it's a bit of a difference than if you have the data that implies there's a God. And this person that you were talking to says, how can you not look at biology as evidence of God? Because it doesn't indicate a God. That's the
well, that was my response.
that's
right?
the big problem.
Yeah,
it's like, so you can't. It's not that these people ever say that that there is this biological feature or this factor or this function or whatever implies that there's an intelligent designer. The best argument they ever get is science can't explain it, therefore God. And even in those cases, every one of those times has been refuted. And when somebody doesn't understand the consensus, they think that that science is established by democracy. But if you have 100 scientists in a given field, and 98 of them say that these two guys are wrong, and the two guys that say they're right don't have a reason to say they're right, they just assume their own conclusion, you're going to need more than that. You need the experts in the field to say, yes, this is actually indicated, and this is how it's indicated. It's not just that they see the hand of God however they want to see it.
Yeah, I think I used the example of plumbing, that if my plumber said he sees God in the field of plumbing, that doesn't mean that's actually indicated. Whether he sees it or not is not really an aspect of his plumbing. I didn't mean it that way. But anyway.
You see how the studio audience right away went there.
I don't know. So anyway.
Okay.
Thank you for that. And do you have anything to add or anything that's upcoming that you'd like to mention or promote? And I just want to say that at the blog, I did post the show post, and I also mentioned your book, and I also mentioned your YouTube channel, and I do have links to both at the blog. So just FYI, those are already promoted at the blog. But is there anything else?
I have a speaking page that I will be doing a Darwin Day presentation in Denver, Colorado, and I've got a couple of other things that are coming about. I don't remember off the top of my head, so I'm not going to plug anything.
Okay.
I don't remember the dates or the times or anything.
Maybe they can check your channel for more information?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And links below.
Okay.
That's what I usually say.
All right. That works. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start with callers, and we will go to, I think